United we play, united we win.
And goodbye, home run!
All hits all the time.
We are family.
Max Scherzer, double-digit Ks.
We're busting ours to kick yours.
Fun to watch.
Minus 15.
Respect all, fear none.
Into the upper deck.
Intensity is not a curfew.
Oh, mercy!
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon and welcome into MASN All Access, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in here on this Monday afternoon. I'm your host, Paul Mancana. Well, baseball's winter meetings have been moved from Dallas, Texas to Zoom this year. So instead of coming to you from the lobby of the Omni Dallas Hotel, we're here in the MASN newsroom, but that means our shows are still going to be no less packed with interviews, pieces, and reaction to breaking news around baseball. We'll be with you today, tomorrow, and Wednesday with podcasts on Thursday to wrap everything up. And joining me today and tomorrow and Wednesday on set here is my co-host Brendan Mortensen. And Brendan, we came into this winter expecting a pretty slow free agent market, and so far this offseason has lived up to that billing.
Yeah, it's been an understandably slow offseason so far, but hopefully winter meetings will pick things up a little bit. We'll finally start to see some of those top free agents come off the board.
And in terms of the Orioles' needs for this offseason, they may have created some needs for themselves by shaking up their infield in the past couple weeks.
Yeah, Jose Iglesias traded to the Angels, Hanser Alberto non-tendered. I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Elias and the O's go after that middle of the infield in free agency. I think the first place, specifically shortstop. Mike Elias mentioned that they're not done addressing that position. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a similar signing to Jose Iglesias a season ago. A name like Adeiny Echeverria, Freddie Galvis, those two pop into my head as potential signings for the Orioles. And then starting pitching. We know the O's always go after that starting pitching. Could they sign a minor league deal like they did with Tommy Milone a season ago? Maybe go after someone like Gio Gonzalez. I think those are two positions the Orioles could go for.
And this is why we do these shows live. We had breaking news right before the show went live. Not exactly the most exciting breaking news. The Orioles claiming a right-handed pitcher, Ashton Goudeau, off waivers from the Pirates. He's a 28-year-old righty. Just 4 games, 4 appearances at the big league level in his career. But a guy that has gotten his feet wet at the big league level, has pitched a lot in the minor leagues, and the other side of this is Austin Wynns, the catcher, has been removed from the 40-man roster and has cleared waivers. We don't know yet if he has accepted his demotion to AAA Norfolk, but we will find out at some point. That means there's only 2 catchers left on this 40-man roster, and the Orioles got themselves a pitcher.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I think there's 2 important things to note there. The first of which being that the Orioles will only have 2 catchers at the major league level. Does that open up a spot for maybe a Brett Cumberland, who's been a consistent bat at the minor league level? Or maybe could we see Adley Rutschman later on in the year? That's something to get excited for. And then with Goudeau, he will probably compete for a roster spot. I don't think he's a big impact bullpen signing with an ERA of about 7.5 in his 4 appearances, but a signing nonetheless that I think could help the Orioles bullpen.
We're going to be talking all week about potential moves that the Orioles could make during this so-called winter meetings, and we're going to be speaking later on in this show to Geoff Arnold, MASN broadcaster as well. But we're going to kick things off here on our winter meetings shows with an interview with the head man, GM Mike Elias. Now we're joined on MASN All Access by Orioles General Manager Mike Elias, who joins us via Zoom. Mike, thanks so much for hopping on.
Hey, Paul. Yeah, a little different winter meetings than sitting in San Diego with you last year, but glad to be on.
Yeah, we were used to doing these in person, and of course winter meetings are typically in person. Do you feel like you miss a little bit of something, not being able to see and interact with all the people you're used to seeing at winter meetings and conduct business in person?
I think 1 year off is something that we can handle, but it's definitely a real fixture of the baseball industry. You meet so many people face to face that you otherwise would only talk to over the phone, the agents, the other executives that you deal with. It's so important for hiring and identifying young people that are trying to get involved in baseball. And there's just a lot of excitement to the whole affair. So I really hope this is the one and only time that we're going to miss that great event.
And of course, the offseason has been different for numerous reasons, and we've seen a little bit of a slower free agent market, a lot of maybe some surprising designations for assignment and some non-tenders all across baseball. Is that kind of what you've expected coming into this offseason, or has there been anything that has jumped out to you or surprised you?
Well, I think things that will pick up. I mean, certainly we've got an unusual circumstance this year with the ripple effects of the coronavirus on the industry, the fact that we didn't have fans last year, but the number of non-tenders in the last few years has been growing, and I think this year was more an extension of that than anything too related to the virus. But it's just a part of our calendar. Once the tender deadline passes, there's a lot more clarity about the free agent market, and I think teams are a strong bevy of internal options. But we're going to always look for more starting pitching depth. I think we had some successful minor league signings last year that helped us out while our young players were developing still. Tommy Malone had a great first half with us, and we were able to trade him for prospects. So we'll be on the lookout for those guys. And we also have a lot of upper-level pitching coming from the minor leagues, a lot of which was added to the 40-man roster the last couple of weeks. But a lot of those guys haven't pitched in AAA at all, especially because of the outage this year. And so we don't want to be in a position to rush the development of those players. So we're going to be looking for some starting pitching options for sure.
And while you won't rush to develop some of those guys, they are close, as you mentioned, to the big leagues. And three names that stick out, three of the guys that you added recently to that 40-man roster with Alexander Wells, Michael Baumann, and Zach Lowther. Could you envision a scenario where by the end of the 2020 season you have to open multiple spots in the rotation in order to make sure that these guys get some starts in?
Well, the good news is that we have reliever innings as well. So if we're fortunate enough to have a full rotation and it's time for Michael or Lowther or Wells to come up and contribute, we don't necessarily need to work them into the rotation right away. We actually, we did something like that last year with Keegan Aiken, kind of got his feet wet with some relief appearances and then settled into the rotation a little later in the season. So I just think the most important thing is hopefully we have a AAA baseball experience at the front end of the spring. I think we're going to have it at some point in 2021, but it's a little unclear when that might be. We can see what these guys do in AAA, and we'll look forward to weaving them into the major leagues as they have success.
And that minor league talent also extends to position players, and in particular, the outfield is now a group that suddenly seems to be loaded with talent in terms of the major leagues. You have Anthony Santander, Ryan Mountcastle, who's got some time in left, Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins. Then you've got a couple guys who are ready to make their big league debuts soon with Yusniel Diaz, maybe Ryan McKenna. Do you feel like there are enough innings and enough games in the 2021 season for all of those guys to get an opportunity?
It's definitely something that I think tends to work itself out with injuries. With our DH spot, I think we'll be able to get all of these players the at-bats that we need. But you're right, there's a lot of competition. We're still in the process of seeing what we've got with some of these guys at the major league level. That said, Trey Mancini's coming back. That's huge. We saw what Ryan Mountcastle did in his debut last year. We're hoping he can build off of that. And Anthony Santander, before he pulled his oblique at the end, was looking like a burgeoning star. So that's three possible middle order bats that can rotate through the corner outfield spots. We've also got Yusniel Diaz, the top prospect that hasn't played in AAA yet. No fault of his, just we didn't have AAA last year. Really good-looking hitter and plays a plus corner outfield defense, but can also help us out, I think, on a part-time basis in center field. And then we've got three really quality center fielders, defensive center fielders on the roster with Hayes, with Mullins, and with Ryan McKenna, who's yet to debut. So that's going to be a good competition and mix there. And not to mention DJ Stewart. So it's a really strong young group. These guys are still kind of battling it out to establish themselves, but seems like more than enough competition for a club like ours to make sense for our goals.
And it wouldn't be a complete conversation about the minor league system without mentioning Adley Rutschman. Of course, at this time last year, you had announced that he was going to be seen at Sarasota in spring training and be with the big league club, and he got his feet wet there and got some at-bats in spring training and was around the big league club. At this point, considering we heard great things about his work over the summer in Bowie, and we've heard great things, of course, from your end as to his development, do you feel like he could make his big league debut in 2021?
Really hard to handicap just because this is a historically unprecedented situation where a guy gets picked number 1 overall and then doesn't play at all in any level of minor league baseball the next year because the minor league season was canceled. That said, he was a polished college player. He performed very well at our alternate site against our pitching, which was, big prospects from the AA, AAA level, and then a lot of 4A or major league caliber pitchers that were there. So that was really encouraging. He's a pretty polished defender. But, I think that we would love for him to play some AA, AAA baseball, as it's almost unprecedented for someone to not do that at any point in their career. So we'll just have to see what the year brings us in terms of opportunities and structure. But he is a very exciting talent, just a real level-headed kid. And we're really lucky that we have him.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Well, let's turn the page to the Rule 5 draft because that's around the corner here. You were careful to protect as many guys as you could, adding 6 guys to that 40-man roster in order to protect them from being taken in the Rule 5 draft. With teams operating with less information this season, do you feel like other teams operated similarly to how you did in terms of they were careful to protect a lot of guys, or were they a little bit uncertain as to what other teams thought of their prospects, so they left some guys exposed?
It looked pretty normal to me. I mean, I think that everyone's aware of the fact that there was no minor league baseball last year, that it's hard to stick on a big league roster all year, even under normal circumstances. But we're all dealing with this circumstance. We're still making trades. We're still making draft picks, even though we have less information than we normally do. And I think that will extend to the Rule 5 draft. Teams will take chances with the information that they have available to them. It's a lot easier nowadays to put together a lot of info on a player using video and data than it was. So it's not quite as flying blind as you might expect. So I expect a pretty normal level of activity in the Rule 5 draft. We were in a situation where we had a lot of guys to add, but it helped that they were all upper level prospects, AA, AAA guys that we feel will be contributing members of the 40-man roster on the sooner side, rather than somebody that we expect to need a couple of more years in the minor leagues before they can make their debut. So we're fortunate with that. We're not going to be afraid to call any of these guys up when they're ready and needed. And that made the protection decisions a lot easier than they would be otherwise. And that's how we were able to add so many prospects.
And even after adding those 6 guys, you were able to open 2 spots on that 40-man roster, which is at 38 at this point. Was that important for you to have at least 1 spot open headed into the Rule 5 draft in case a prospect may fall to you that you want to select?
Yeah, I think so. We certainly want to leave ourselves opportunity to participate in the Rule 5 draft. Doesn't mean we're picking 5th, and if we only have 3 or 4 players that we feel are worthy of that opportunity with us, or that are good fits, and they all get taken, maybe we won't take anyone, but that seems unlikely. So I would expect some activity on the first round of the Rule 5 draft from us.
Is there anything in particular about this group that is available for the Rule 5 draft that sticks out to you? If it's heavy in one area, light in the other, maybe deep in terms of pitching or position players?
Well, not really at this point, and I'm looking forward to meeting with the entire baseball operations staff over the next few days. Preparing for the Rule 5 draft is something that you have to do late because we don't know who's protected until a week ago. So you really only have about 10 days between the protection date and the Rule 5 draft to actually prepare, because you have to know who the candidates are. So it's always something that we devote time to at the winter meetings. Usually it's something we do in a hotel room late at night, and we have a big staff meeting, but this year it's going to be over video conferencing, just like everything. So we're going to be doing that here in the next day.
And was the addition of the alternate camps around baseball, and especially that fall instructional league, Were those important in terms of gathering data and video on some of the prospects that you might take here?
You know, a lot of the guys that are eligible for the Rule 5 draft weren't at Instructional League just because they were upper level prospects. Some were, some weren't, but it's certainly been helpful information when we've been able to get it when guys went to Instructs. We covered every single Instructional League in Florida and Arizona. And we also are receiving a good bit of data from most of the team's alternate sites. It was optional whether or not to participate in the sharing program. We did, a few teams didn't. But for the teams that were involved in the program, we're getting video and data from their alternate sites.
Sounds good. Well, we can't wait to see what the rest of this week brings, what should have been winter meetings, and of course the Rule 5 draft to close things out in just a couple days. But in the meantime, Mike Elias, thanks so much for hopping on MASN All Access.
Thank you. See you, Paul.
Well, we came into last year's winter meetings with 3 major free agents on the market. We left with all 3 inking deals with teams, 1 on each day of the meetings. Garrett Cole signed with the Yankees, Steven Strasburg re-signed with the Nationals, and Anthony Rendon signed with the Angels. The O's, meanwhile, had just made 2 big trades pretty much right before hopping on the plane, as Mike Elias dealt Jonathan Villar to the Marlins and Dylan Bundy to the Angels. Here's a refresher of the 2019 meetings in San Diego. The entire baseball world has gathered in San Diego, California for the baseball winter meetings. And welcome into MASN All Access, which is where we will be, the Manchester Grand Hyatt for the next week.
Orioles general manager Mike Elias made his offseason checklist very clear. Back-end starters and middle infielders. That became increasingly clear just this week when they dealt both Dylan Bundy and Jonathan Villar.
Besides those 2 needs, is there anywhere else in the roster that you think you could really upgrade over the next couple months?
We have needs in the middle infield and in the starting rotation, specifically since we made the moves to trade VR and Bundy.
Now with Bundy, you got 4 guys, and they've scouted him heavily. They really like him. 2 of them right out of college and even pitched this year professionally. And those are guys they feel like that they can go ahead and kind of push along here. I think MASN, the reliever, is going to be in AAA. We may see him in Baltimore over the summer.
Does it excite you to see so many young guys pushing the boundaries and trying to get up to the major leagues here?
Well, I think Mike's been really transparent about what we're trying to do. We're trying to just continue to raise the level of talent in our organization.
But do you still see that value on a team, for especially a team that's in contention, having somebody who is a veteran, somebody who can help mentor younger players?
I think it'd be foolish to think because we can't measure it that it doesn't matter. And it matters whether you're the division favorite or not.
Big announcement that you made yesterday was that Orioles fans will see Adley Rutschman in spring training. Don't know quite yet what capacity.
He's an advanced college catcher, and we want to start getting him exposed to the Major League coaching staff, to the players in the Major League team.
So that was we're joined on MASN All Access by Geoff Arnold. Once again, like last year, Mike Elias made some big moves right before we get into the meat of the offseason. Let's go back to October 30th when the Orioles claimed Yolmer Sanchez off waivers. Then 3 weeks after that, right before the deadline, they added 6 guys to their 40-man roster. Alexander Wells, Isaac Mattson, Yusniel Diaz, Zach Lowther, Rylan Bannon, and Michael Baumann. They also released Renato Nunez on that day. Then on December 2nd, they traded Jose Iglesias to the Angels and non-tendered Hanser Alberto, while also agreeing to contracts with Pedro Severino, Sean Armstrong, Pat Valleca, and Yolmer Sanchez, and tendering contracts to Trey Mancini and Anthony Santander. And of those moves, I think we can say that the most surprising to most people was Jose Iglesias getting dealt because he was such a big part of the Orioles infield. But let's bring Brendan back in here, because Brendan, it just at a certain point made sense for them to make that move, because it was a move that was done with the long-term vision in mind, considering Iglesias is now over 30 and was only under contract for 1 more season. The Orioles, meanwhile, were able to get back 2 minor league pitchers.
Yeah, and I understand the surprise around Jose Iglesias being traded to the Angels because he was so good for the O's last season. He outperformed everybody's expectations, but that's just the thing. He overperformed, and I think Mike Elias in this deal got the peak value possible for Jose Iglesias. He hit 100 points over his career batting average in 2020. His OPS was 250 points over his career average, so I think you're getting the most you can get for Jose Iglesias by dealing him at this point.
And in terms of what they gained, we've been talking, of course, about what they lost in some of the moves that they've made. But Yolmer Sanchez may be a move that has gone under the radar, and now that some time has passed since they made it. But a guy that is a versatile defender, a Gold Glove winner at some point in his career, and a guy that can play second base, third base, maybe even some shortstop with a pretty solid bat as well.
Yeah, I think Yolmer Sanchez is a really underrated signing for the Orioles. In 2019, he won a Gold Glove while playing the entire season at second base. He had some of the best defensive metrics in the entire league. He doesn't bring a big bat to the Orioles lineup, but he did have 52 extra base hits back in 2018. So I think this is a guy who can really contribute to the middle of the Orioles infield, and you can even bounce him to third base. He played a lot of time there with the White Sox as well.
We are taking your comments as we go live, of course, throughout this entire show. So be sure to comment on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, wherever you are watching this show. Let us know what you think. But I caught up with MASN broadcaster Geoff Arnold earlier today to discuss some of the Orioles' offseason moves and where they could go from here. Now we're joined on MASN All Access by Geoff Arnold, who joins us via Zoom. Geoff, thanks so much for hopping on here.
Paul, it has been forever, but it is great to see you, and I'm glad that you got the casts off after your couple of wrist injuries there.
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can use them now. I won't be using them for tennis anytime soon, but I can at least write with a pen, so that is a definite improvement. But how have you been spending your off season so far?
Yeah, it's been pretty low-key because of some of the uptick in COVID cases right now. It's been a lot more time just at home, not really doing all that much, a lot of reading, some dog walks, and, just following some of the Orioles news and things that have been going on. But it has been as low key of a time as I can remember since I got out of college. But, we're getting closer to spring training and getting underway. And I certainly can't wait until the time when we are back playing baseball again.
Absolutely. That pitchers and catchers reporting to Sarasota can't come soon enough. But in the meantime, let's talk about some of that offseason news that you referenced there. Let's start with the infield because the Orioles infield got a major shakeup over the past couple weeks. The Jose Iglesias move, that was one that I think surprised some, but it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons considering his age, considering there was only a year left on his deal. Was that a move that surprised you when he was dealt to the Angels?
I think it surprised all of us because he was your most stable infielder, and this past year he was one of your best players. I mean, it was him and Anthony Santander who finished, the first two spots in the most valuable Oriole award, and there are no obvious options in-house to be able to take over at shortstop. But as Michael Elias talked about, when you have an opportunity to go out and get somebody who you figure can be a member of your starting rotation in Stallings, they were able to get some of the video on him. Look at him when he was in instructional league with the Angels and was somebody that it seemed like Elias was really excited about coming out of the previous year's draft. I can understand the talent acquisition part of it. I also understand why they got an additional pitcher who's 19 years old from the Dominican Republic as well. But the real question is going to be who is going to play shortstop. And I think at this point, you don't have any obvious in-house options who's going to be an everyday shortstop. But remember, the non-tender market, even though maybe wasn't quite as bad as people thought it was going to be, there's still a lot of really good options out there who you will probably go out and pick up, and one of them will be your everyday shortstop. But I was certainly very surprised when Iglesias was traded.
Yeah, and Yolmer Sanchez, of course, was brought into the organization via waiver claim. He can be a versatile defender, play second base, maybe third base, and even a little shortstop in a pinch. But do you think that the Orioles specifically need a shortstop as opposed to just kind of a versatile guy in free agency? Or do you think that they can just kind of find somebody who fills that mold and can get some games in at shortstop but is not a designated shortstop?
I think they need a designated shortstop. They need somebody who has a proven track record, who comes at a bit of a lower cost. With this year, we saw it a little bit where it became a bit of a revolving door at shortstop with kind of limited success. You had Pat Valleca playing there some. You had Andrew Velazquez playing some on account of Iglesias' injury. But I really think you need to go out and find somebody who can consistently play shortstop every day and can shore up the middle of your infield. Sanchez is certainly a great option to play, as you said, second base. He could probably play third base as well. But when you have a young pitching staff, especially, you need a couple of guys up the middle who can catch the ball. And so I think that requires you to probably go out and find a good deal on somebody who can be your shortstop every day.
Yeah, and Mike Elias at this point last year was looking for a shortstop, and he got a pretty good one to a pretty cheap deal in Jose Iglesias, so he'll have the same task again this winter. In terms of the pitching staff, the rotation maybe could use some guys to fill out the depth, and that's something that Mike Elias has hinted to, maybe adding somebody on a major or minor league deal. But they have so many guys in the minor league system that are just waiting to make their debuts in the next year or two. Do you think they need to add somebody on a major league deal, or do you think they can get by with some minor league signings?
Again, I think that because of the non-tender market being what it was, and some pitchers maybe underperforming in the 60-game truncated season. I had to get truncated in at least once while we're doing this, by the way. I feel like there will be maybe a cheaper option out there, but if not, you could very easily sign a couple of pitchers to minor league free agent deals. Going into 2021, I think you feel a lot better about who your starting rotation is going to be, or the composition of it, compared to where we're going into 2020, where there were maybe like one or two spots that you definitely knew were going to be filled, maybe a third where you had a pretty good idea of who it was going to be, and then a lot of question marks after that. I think you're in a better spot this year, and the way that Keegan Aiken pitched and Dan Kramer pitched, they certainly gave you confidence, and I think you feel like both of those guys are going to be in your starting rotation come opening day. But Tommy Milone was a minor league free agent sign who, remember, was the Orioles opening day starting pitcher when John Means had to be scratched on account of injury, and he threw the ball really well. Things didn't necessarily go quite as well for him in Atlanta, but you were able to get some value back when you traded him, which was about as good of a circumstance as Mike Elias could have imagined. So I would imagine guys like that would be maybe some options. I'm not saying Milone specifically, but going out, finding some veterans who can be minor league free agent signs that will be competing for rotation spots, because as we all know, just having 5 starting pitchers or maybe 6 or 7 isn't going to make you feel all that good, because injuries certainly are going to pop up, and maybe even more so given that this year was weird to begin with. Innings limits were guys didn't pitch as many innings as you thought they were going to, and so I feel like having as many options as possible for your starting rotation is going to be important. And my guess is that a couple of guys will be added on those minor league deals that can give you some possibilities in case there are injuries or in case you just somebody doesn't perform quite as well in spring training.
Yeah, well said, and especially considering if they do stick with the 162-game season as planned for next year, they could have larger roster sizes than in previous years, and they will have a whole lot more innings to fill in the gaps there. So could always use more pitchers on that end. But in terms of the bullpen, it is a stretch probably to say it is the strength of this team, but it certainly outperformed expectations in 2020. And Mike Elias has mentioned the fact that he thinks it's pretty solid at the time being, with some young talent in there as well. When you look at Dylan Tate and Hunter Harvey, in addition to guys like Paul Fry and some of the others, Sean Armstrong. Do you think that this is a bullpen that is pretty solid going into 2021, even if they don't make any major additions this offseason?
Well, you saw a lot of really good signs from this past year, and you got to give a lot of credit to Doug Roquel and Darren Holmes. We heard a lot of different players talk about the role that Darren Holmes played in helping things improve going into the 2020 season. I felt a lot of the success hinged on just getting ahead of hitters and not putting themselves in bad counts. And you saw that with a bunch of different guys. And Cesar Valdez was a great story, not only because he throws changeup more than anybody in baseball, but just how he would attack hitters and get ahead and pitch unafraid. And I think guys like that really provided an example as to this is how you go about your business, and you can pitch this way and you can be aggressive even if you don't have lights out stuff. There's certainly guys that do. I feel like, Hunter Harvey, when he came back, he had some moments that were pretty good, but hopefully having him healthy for a full season. Tanner Scott really took well to when they changed up his delivery in spring training with more of a load and go and not having such a high balance point and throwing things off. So I think he found some mechanics that work really well for him. And then Dylan Tate was a nice piece coming out of the bullpen. So I feel like from a relief standpoint, you're in a really good spot. Once again, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe somebody got added on a club-friendly deal, but you've got a lot of pieces there that perform really well. You mentioned Sean Armstrong. I thought he had a year that was really good. He might have flown under the radar a little bit. He did have that injury in there. Travis Ligon Sr. pitched really well. He had a sub-3 earned run average. So there were a lot of examples of guys coming into their own this year, and I think the bullpen was one area where you saw that happen quite a bit. And hopefully guys take the confidence that they built from 2020 and carry it over to 2021.
A lot of exciting young arms in this Orioles organization, in the bullpen, and of course in the starting rotation as well. But Geoff, thanks so much for hopping on. We'll certainly catch up at least once more before Sarasota and spring training in February, but we appreciate the time.
Paul, I appreciate it, and you have a great holidays.
You too. So here's where the 40-man roster stands at the moment, with 2 open spots. Of course, the move being made earlier today, that would be Ashton Goudeau joining the Orioles via waiver claim. Right-handed pitcher, he's 28 years old. And the corresponding move for that would be the removal of catcher Austin Wynns, who has been outrighted to AAA Norfolk, and we have yet to learn whether he has accepted that outright to AAA Norfolk or whether he will leave the organization. That leaves 2 catchers on that 40-man roster. Whole lot of pitchers at this point. And of course, the 6 guys that were added to the 40-man roster a couple weeks ago, 6 prospects who have not yet made their major league debut, Yusniel Diaz, Rylan Bannon, among others. So that's where the 40-man roster stands at the moment. And you heard Mike Elias say earlier that those 2 open roster spots could be big for them as they enter the Rule 5 draft on Thursday. They could add at least 1 player, maybe 2, Brendan, and this is a team that obviously adores the Rule 5 draft, so you knew Mike Elias wanted to keep at least 1 open spot in case somebody were to come along that they want to scoop up.
Yeah, I think the Orioles have selected somebody in the Rule 5 draft since forever, approximately, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Orioles are active in the first round of the Rule 5 draft. And we're also getting some comments on our Facebook and YouTube as we go along here. One of the comments from Scott on Facebook said the Orioles need to get some hitting, and I think that can actually be done without any acquisitions. I think the Orioles will have an injection of hitting in 2021 with a healthy Trey Mancini and a healthy Anthony Santander to go along with guys at the big league level already, like Orion Mountcastle. Those 3 haven't played yet together at the major league level, so I think that could be a really exciting 3, 4, 5. And then another comment from Randy on Facebook talking about how excited he is for some of the young pitching. Mentions Grayson Rodriguez, Zach Lowther, and looks ahead to the future in that 2022-2023 range. And I think that's important to keep in mind as we move along in these winter meetings, is that while the Orioles are probably making moves for the future is looking very bright with those guys.
Absolutely, and Mike Elias continues to add to that already deep farm system, a farm system that has gone from one of the lesser in all of baseball to a top 10 farm system by most accounts. And you know he just wants to get that farm system even higher in the rankings across baseball. Well, one of the guys in the Orioles farm system who has not drawn a whole lot of attention is Joey Ortiz, a guy who was drafted in 2019 along with guys like Adley Rutschman and Kyle Stowers, and he made his professional debut last summer, has been excellent to start his big league career. And actually, the day that Adley Rutschman made his debut in Aberdeen, Joey Ortiz had his best night as a pro. And in the Fall Instructional League just a month ago, Adley Rutschman was messing around with the guys in the clubhouse on TikTok, making sure that they were going viral via some incredible TikTok videos. Joey Ortiz was one of the guys in that viral TikTok video that featured a song by Ali and AJ. Here's the full story of the TikTok that went viral from the words of Joey Ortiz.
It took too long, it took too long, it took too long for you to call back.
You know, the first time I got around the draft class of 2019, it was great. It was a lot of college guys, and I think that's why, you know, we kind of got along so well really fast.
And normally I would just forget that.
I was just sitting there, like, overhearing, and then they were like, Joey, you want to get in on it? I was like, sure, I mean, why not? Like, we're not doing anything, might as well have some fun.
Except for the fact it was my birthday.
It was cool to see how it exploded everywhere and went viral. It was kind of cool.
My stupid birthday.
Absolutely. Definitely want to do more. Hopefully they go viral too.
Just great stuff from those guys. Don't forget about the MASN All Access podcast. Brendan and I host it, and you can catch it on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Watch it on Facebook like you're doing now, or watch it on YouTube like you could be doing now as well. Anywhere you get your podcasts, you can get the MASN All Access podcast, and we will have a show on Thursday, a podcast for you to wrap up this week's winter meetings. Most recent one that you can listen to right now discusses the Jose Iglesias trade and the non-tendering of Hanser Alberto. That does it for our show today, but we will be back tomorrow and, of course, Wednesday to discuss any moves that the Orioles might yet make, and we'll have Sig Mejdal, assistant GM for the Baltimore Orioles, on that show to discuss analytics in the Orioles organization. But in the meantime, thanks, of course, to Bobby Blanco, Hannah Broder, Amy Jennings, and my co-host Brendan Mortensen. I'm Paul Mancano. Thanks to you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock.